Hello, welcome back to my Gravitas 2 minis. My name is Cthulha, or Monster, and today I want to talk about mining supports. Right now we're in my creative testing world. It's a little bit desolate, as you can see. There's an EBF over there just testing it out. And I wanted to see if my understanding of mining supports were correct before I showed you them in survival. So if you started with the ATM Gravitas 2, or if you've played any Terrafirmacraft, you know that this system actually really has a gravity-based blocks. So right now I'm using sand, and you'll notice that if I'm trying to grab a stack, it's actually going to fall sideways. All right, even if I grab something like dirt, which dirt, um, when testing this, make sure you're grabbing TFC based ones. So I'm just going to grab this loamy dirt, which is actually one of my least favorite. You'll see that if I try to stack over two, it's going to fall. But that's where mining supports come into play if you are doing some digging. These are a little bit tricky to get used to. The book says that there is a 9 by 5 by 9 boundary on the support, and it's focused on this center one here. So this here is the horizontal block. So your support doesn't come from this block nor the corner. It's specifically the center one. So this is the smallest support I can make. It's only one horizontal for three up. And if you notice, I break one of the sides, the middle falls out. So the largest one you can do is actually to have five in here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in between. So now if I put this one up, you'll see that it can generate that horizontal. If I try to go one forward further, I can't generate that horizontal. There's some pros and cons to this, and it's in regards to cave-ins. If you're using the maximum extent here, when it does cave in, you're going to get a larger cave-in because you're losing the support. So now each of these would be able to support a block as well. If this one's my last one here, it can handle 4 more blocks in this axis, so 1, 2, 3, 4. But then if I add another one to it, it's going to fall. And same with if I'm going in this direction. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can handle that. Fifth one will fall. So that's kind of how I visualize this out. And that's the same if you're just using a singular one here as well. All right, so I've surrounded the center with green here, and that is because the center is the horizontal block here. And now I'm going to test. Remember when we said that you can go 5 on the vertical? So this one here should hold, and I just realized the mistake this. Let me just redo this here. I'm going to put this a little higher up in the air. And this is what we mean also by gravity defiant blocks, or if you ever hear me say that, generally they're blocks that have been processed is what I've seen. So you're going to see a lot of planks and other items. So once again, I'm going to surround my center with green on the vertical axes, and then I'm going to see how many it'll hold. So because it should be able to handle 5, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now if I try to apply the black, this one should fall. Yep, so sweet, see it fell. And this one also here should fall. So one trick with that is you might notice is that this design won't allow you to fill in a floor. So if you are concerned about a cave-in, because remember there's going to be material here that maybe is over a cave, you may want to throw in a temporary support, dig it out, and then put this in. So on the vertical, we know that these blocks are supported, and that's maximum. On the vertical, this is where the 9 by 5s come into, the 9s come into play. So I always take my odd number out because that's the middle one. So I know I can go 4 in the other direction. So we're going to do white, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's supported. But if I try to do this one, falls right down. All right, same thing on this side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and the black one should fall. Yep, so there she goes. So that is the extents here and on this axis. So now we can count again from this spot. And what we need to do is make sure we're counting this white corner here as the first white. So this is actually 1. So remember, it's a 9 by 9 by 5. So we're going to remove the center out of the 9. So now we have 4. We divide that in half for either side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this black one should fall. Yeah. And then same here. So white, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then fall. So yeah, so that's kind of how I visualize it. So now if I were to try to understand what's stable, so let's see if we can get a red sand here. And that I think is one of the things when I mine, I really need to remind myself of. It's less about like what's my wall and what's the most, is what will keep stable with these mining supports. So I know, let me just make sure these are terraform affected. So we're gonna click there. You can see that it's stable, it lines up with my green. So this is my starting in my block. So when you're mining, you don't necessarily just want your system to be, you don't want to dig all the way to your outer ends because it's not stable. So if I want to actually build something against a stable outcrop, I'm going to need to build it within this zone. So this is just what, if we break it, it's the last thing that'll hold something from falling, if that makes sense. And I can show that a little bit better here. So, and I do recommend getting a chance to look at this in creative. If you do have any questions or if you have to remind yourself, I actually had to remind myself a little bit as well on this when I just kept mistaking my horizontal for my vertical after a moment. So this is everything that should be stable. So let's make a fake little collapse here. So this is my stable ceiling here, right? I know this all works from a stable ceiling standpoint. If I put another one on top, it can hold, right? But even though I know this one's stable and I should be able to mine it, if I hit this one out from under it, it's going to fall. So that's what's kind of happening when you're creating, when you dig too high into your ceiling. So if I need to create a safe ceiling for my design, maybe it's simpler to do this a little bit differently. So that's where I will actually create almost a fake set of supports or a temporary set of supports, because this one won't hold up and will fall through. So even if this zone is supported, if it's moving, it's not going to stop the velocity. So that's a big one, is velocity it won't protect against. So take this block 2 above your support with caution is what I'm trying to say. All right. So once you get an idea of how to do mining supports, you can use TFC stands to actually build up in the air. Not stands, but materials to build up in the air a little bit. But I did want to test this for my own knowledge, and I wanted to kind of explain like what happens if the block isn't updated, because you'll notice that sometimes hitting a block will cause like a cascading effect in your TFC world. So yeah, let's see what this looks like back here. All right, in the back, you can see that is a very beautiful set of mining supports. This was all built off of these two over here, and this helped me set up a set of, mining supports to go up and down. So you can see I was using this method here to get further down in my site. I don't necessarily have to always walk underneath my mining supports, and then I was able to build up and over as I needed to. But the thing to kind of pay attention to here is, even though my brick here is what is holding up this whole thing and what was there first, if I bust this, it breaks some supports, but none of these blocks are updated. So it doesn't really have a way for this to fall yet. So to do that, I would have to, come in here and make a whoopsie. So sometimes that's what happens when you're sitting here going, when you're working in a base and suddenly you think it has been, made completely safe, but then you do an update and it all falls. You can see that this stuff is updated because this set of supports functions and covers that. So let's see what happens if I bust this other one here, which is somewhere. Ah, there we are. So here's the other one. And if I bust this, once again, nothing's happening. But let's see what the back's looking like. You see all the broken supports. But then if I bust, oop, maybe there's no issue. See it? Learning. What's for dinner tonight? No, that's not really a good answer. So here, there's no issue. It looks like I had enough coverage with the other ones. Okay, you can create a gosh awful mess that's semi-supported. All right, so garlic is life. Okay, let's check this out in survival. All right, welcome back to where I kind of set up the mining tutorial for prospecting. Unfortunately, it's gotten a little messy here. So I can now just dig straight down as long as I don't interrupt this support piece. So here, it's centered 5 in the vertical. So this is supported, this one, but not that one. So if I were to just cause mischief for no good reason. So editor monster here. So I kept trying to do the tutorial, but with the idea to cause just, a small collapse. Plans had to change. Ooh, see, thank gosh I have a lot of health. But yeah, sometimes when you're feeling frisky, you can just force a collapse. And that's where it took down everything. That's where I was talking about how the wall is only supported on that 2.5 vertical. So yeah, so this whole thing has come down from when I did that. I'm actually going to do some prospecting to see if I can find another location. This was a purposeful collapse. I say, who's to believe me, whether or not. But what I did want to show you is once you do get your LV or prospector, it does a really great job. Much easier to find here. I've gotten a good portion of those oil sands out right here. So what I'm going to do is move our search to another item. I'm going to look for another close to the surface patch here to show you about the supports in the real space. So let's go for this ligonite here because those are generally pretty shallow. And in the case of this, I know there's a very large sample here. I've already checked it. I could check it in the prospector here. And what we're looking for with ligonite is limestone ligonite. So I can see that there is a ton of it in this area. So we're going to start here and see what we did get. Once again, I'm going to start with the 3. And this time I'm going to remember to look to see. Yep, I need to go grab ladders. Last time Kay distracted me on ladders and I made 3 ladders for the entirety of it. So yeah, I made 3 ladders last round. And that was not quite enough. I also was a little bit sick, so definitely wasn't paying attention. All right, so I'm going to dig a 3x3 here. I got some lanterns in hand. I typically do try to make sure I have full water and some food before I go mining, just because I know I'm going to get distracted. But yeah, for the moment, we'll just keep going here until I get closer to something I actually want to dig, mine. All right, and this time I'm just going to take a quick check with my steel here and make sure I'm seeing stuff. I'm still seeing a large sample. And then with the prospector, I didn't bring my small prospector. I'm able to see that there's a large sample. That's within 25. So hopefully once I break further into, oh, there we go again. Maybe I should just talk to you guys about it. So this is the limestone lignite here. So I'm gonna want the raw limestone to be the the ceiling of what I'm up to. Okay, I see some water here. It's kind of a pain for me. So I am planning on I'll just fill this in with the gravel I've been making. And hopefully we're not going to run into a, what's the word for it? Submerged cave? Wet cave? That's not my goal. I don't want to play with that. So I will absolutely not be digging in that direction once I get moving. All right, so I want limestone to be the top here. I'm going to grab my supports. I did forget another piece once again. So I'm going to put in my ladder right now. And what I forgot were my gravity blocks, the blocks that don't get affected by gravity. All right, so I grabbed some planks here to form the bottom of this. I forgot to bring water, even though I just mentioned it. But what I'm going to do here is just remove the ladder so I can paste this. So I can put these. So once again, 3 and 3, this is my 1. This is going to be temporary here for me, so I'm going to dig on, well, not that side. Normally I would do both sides because I do like the space. Sometimes this game can make me feel a little claustrophobic. And yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of a texture missing here, so that'd probably be something that I would let the ATM team know in their bugging report. So as we discussed in Create, this is my center block. So in this axis, it should support up to 4 in this direction. If there were an issue with a block on the ceiling here, so remember that it can support this one and the one above, but if that was sand, so let's just see, do I have any sand here? Yep, so if that's sand, that whole line is going to come down. So really, it's giving me a chance to say, okay, well, I don't want to cause collapses. I shouldn't dig this one out. So if I'm going to make a floor, I'm going to sorry, a ceiling know is safe, I'm going to put it at this level here. So if I were to build a ceiling, it's going to be at this height here. And that same situation can apply to your floor. It depends if you're trying to build up though. So if I'm trying to build down here, I'm going to dig this out. And once again, we had talked that this can control, this supports 2 down. So this one is on the 1 here and then 1, 2, but it won't support this one. So if I dig a hole here and down, and I want something that won't collapse my support beams I put to it, so you see that'll fall. What I can do actually is remind myself that mining supports don't have to hold a person under it, and that's where I'll put it down here at the bottom first. And this is temporary for me, so I'm just going to use that to get in here. This now supports 2, so if you think of math, 1, 2, this one is supported as well. And I'm able to uh, dig down a little bit, and know that if there was a cave, it would be supported. If you're not worried about that, like if you're pretty sure there's no cave, you don't need to dig down. Like you don't need to have these lows. This is when you're expanding over something that has a space. All right, so I'm just going to take that out. I don't necessarily want my next floor here. What I'm looking to do is get the maximum 7 across here in this direction. So what I'm going to do is, this is 1, 2, 3. I'm going to dig this out. And I'm less worried about digging unsupported low blocks because they're not going to pick up gravity as they fall than I am digging higher up blocks that aren't supported or are suddenly no longer going to support the stuff above them, because those will gain velocity and fall. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So this one here would be unsupported if I were to start digging there. So what I'm going to do now is put a temporary system in here. I'm going to put my planks down, and I'm going to put horizontals up here. And this one's temporary for me because I'm going to be slowly getting this so I can actually fit 5 here. So right now I got 1, 2, 3 in between. I want to move this support here 2 more over for the maximum here. And now that I have this system, I'm supported again for another 4 based off of the closest horizontal here. Hopefully that makes some sense. It does take a little bit of time to get used to the logic, but I think that, uh, not holding myself to a perfectly pretty mine really helps me. Sometimes I'll try to be perfect on how it's going to look, and that causes issues. I had a beautiful graphite mine. If I remember, if I have a shot, I will put it up. All right, so this one here, you can see that I have 3 here in between these 2 vertical supports, and then I have 3 here. So if I take this one out, I now can reset that horizontal there. And as long as I'm not updating those blocks, or that they aren't like vanilla gravity blocks, I can move this as I need to. So what I consider is I'm not doing any block updates here. I can remove the support. So that's a nice way to kind of reconfigure things. So I know that I want 5 here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want my new support right here. This one isn't tied to any of the verticals, so I can remove it pretty safely here. So I'm going to put this one down here, and that will be my new permanent support. Sometimes to remind myself of what's up, I will actually color code those differently. But yeah, so this is my longest I can go in this direction. So now I'm going to expand this. I came down here, so sometimes I'll try to like make it pretty and make this the center. It depends on what really makes me smile at the time. I don't know if others do that, but that's something that'll happen to me, is I just get amusement out of little things. I don't need this horizontal here because I have this one. So that's also why I removed that. All right, so now we're going to push out in this direction. Or, once again, math with monster, I guess, is the answer. I will at times, if I don't need these blocks dug out, I do this time. I just remember that I can first dig out the shape that I'm looking for. So I'm just looking here. I don't need to worry about those until I need to worry about them. So I'm going to put down my supports here and here. In this case, I'm going to remind myself that I don't want raw blocks underneath um, my supports, and the reason for that is if there was a collapse or something happened, I want to make sure that these supports can hold up based off of what's underneath them. But when in doubt, use caution. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so there we go. Had a moment where I just didn't have enough available, which is why it freaked out there. So when I first start out, if it is a big mine, I'll do something like this, but you don't have a guarantee that you're in a system that needs to be mined this widely. So don't feel like you always have to use the full width, fit to the scenario you're in. All right, so this is the maximum square I can have on an interval here. And say I didn't actually want this located here and I wanted to move the whole thing over, or I was done and I want to grab all my supports. If I don't plan to touch any more block, you can straight up just remove these and it won't fall down. But the moment I come in here and take some of this out, this whole thing will collapse. There's nothing under here to support it. It's very similar to the falling that you see in when you try to explore new areas and stuff falls down. So it's not that, it's going to immediately fall if you lose your supports. It's going to fall if you make a change on anything that those supports were holding up. So in this case, what I wanted to show you is if I wanted to go up and build this higher, I know from my experience that these horizontals can hold 2 above it. So if I take this out, so you see there's gravel right there, there's no guarantee that this gravel won't come all the way down because this gravel right now is stable and likely holding more gravel above it. And same with the rest here. So that could be a little bit of a pain because you're like, well, I want to get higher up. But that's where I remind folks that you can actually put another support here and move your support upwards. So now, if you want to replace your roof with something, so let's just take a check here. That new horizontal is protecting all of this sand that would have, not sand, gravel that would have fallen on us. So that's kind of how I think about these to provide me support understanding. So say if I were building an underground base and I will say I've done them well, and then I will forget in a moment and crash out, collapse and stuff. This is a ceiling that can hold these. There's no air gaps, there's no velocity. So that now if I, bust this ceiling would be something I could have in my underground base. But that's how I need to kind of like step it up as I go, if that makes sense. All right. So the next thing I wanted to show you is just how that would affect it if well, before I do that, because that will cause a collapse. I'm going to purposely cause a collapse a little bit here. But if I wanted to dig down, I have no problems. I just keep digging. And that's why sometimes if I hit the vein on the top, like I did with this lignite, and say it were something that doesn't just form in long shallow, ooh, a little bit of a dip there. I will actually just keep digging, and the fact that these are, and leave my planks floating, and then maybe if I'm going to try to leave it aesthetic, I'll put like a little, keep those as little, I don't want to say borders, um, catwalks is what I'm thinking, and I'll show you mine here towards the end once I get through this. So yeah, you can keep digging down. That's not a problem. Digging up, well, unless you hit a cave, and then your area here is going to come down. But that's why you have these protected here. If they were raw ores or whatnot, there's a possibility that it's going to come right down. So in the case of this, I know I can dig one more up, but this here is my last supported one. So if I dig this, it seems like it's doing okay. You might be starting to hear some rumbles up there. Oh, that's why. Darn thing. Okay, so that's my last supported one. Ah, stuff is coming down. In this case, it's pretty controlled, but if you go further up, it's going to potentially cause everything that these blocks were controlling to fall down. So yeah, so that's kind of, and now that they're no longer falling, they're supported because velocity isn't attached. The moment you take that velocity out, uh, you know, it's just going to fall until it hits the ground. So whoever explores over here, I am deeply sorry. I'm not fixing this. I'll just try to make sure I come over here to keep mining here to make it a mine zone. All right, so that's my kind of my intro there to supports. And so the first mine I want to talk about is actually close to our base here over in the, um, oh, it looks like someone was gathering some claystone over in the Badlands, I think is the name for this. So you can kind of see it right there. All right, so those of you who are eagle-eyed might have already caught it. This is my first mine that I was looking for default copper, to be honest. Oh, oh no, curiosity already there. And I actually found Greg Tech, which is very lucky for me. So I'm gonna, oh no, I'm so sorry, curiosity. What have I done to you? Come closer. I made a space that you can't land in. So I'm gonna actually put it to staying here. And this is my first mine that I did that was, yeah, I was looking for copper and I missed it with my 3x3 here. It has been collapsed once in a while. I definitely, that's definitely happened. And I ran a miner once I had one here. But as you can see, I didn't take the advice of putting um, non-collapsible blocks underneath the supports. So I actually had some ores like this one here that I can't take, or I'm potentially going to cause a collapse there. So I was just a little too nervous to do that. And this was still when I'm, practicing my mining here with the TFC ores. So if you come down, you can see that, I got some really long vertical ones coming in. And I actually went past here just because I was checking out what was there. But yeah, kind of an example of what you can do with the mining supports. And as you can see, there's not that many down here at the bottom. It's mostly up at top and pillars, and that can be really nice to do. All right, this one I started actually looking for sand, and I hit iron pretty much immediately. And I did have some collapsing going on. You can see that, stuff was collapsing, and this is where I was kind of practicing setting up like a ceiling to protect myself from collapses in the future. And this is where I actually started trying to really hunt down salt. And this is where I've started to, this is where I was using that stepping up technique to try to get up. I sometimes just go a little crazy with the supports. I dug a hole to dig all that sand, but when I was trying to focus my prospecting, I'm doing the same thing I was doing above, and I just completely overshot. It went in the wrong direction, and it was right over here. So that's where, you got some exploratory tunnels that you end up getting. And at the time I didn't mind because I did also need some limestone for flux. So that's one of the ones I set up.